Hey everybody, welcome back. It is a beautiful morning in the Arizona desert, probably upper 60s and just clear skies. I love this time of year here. So before I go back to work on the Mustang, I'm going to give my neck and my back and shoulders and hips a little bit of a break from all the crawling around on the concrete I did getting those freeze plugs in. And one thing I want to do is I came out because I wanted to solve my battery drain. I have a 3/10 of an amp battery drain on this vehicle, and when I unplugged the alternator it went away. I was sure it was the alternator. Then I went on that odyssey where I put 3 different alternators in it, and the original alternator had bad bearings, so it had to go anyway. But the first alternator I got put out over 16 volts, and that's not acceptable to me. It is to some of you, and that's fine. I'm not going to argue with you anymore. If you think 16.5 volts going into your battery is splendid, then carry on with it. It's not to me, so I swapped it out for a second one. The second one didn't work at all, which I think is probably my mistake now that I'm looking back over what happened. And I got this third one in, which is a reman, and it's acceptable to me within the parameters of specifications of what it's supposed to do. Barely acceptable, but it's acceptable. And the bearings sound okay, but I still have my 1/3 of an amp draw. And I'm thinking, what could that be? What have I done? And I came out and I fooled with it a bit and looking at it and going, and then I had the problem with all the different meters, and I'll talk about my meters here in a moment. But I came out this morning to look at it, and I poked my head down here and I saw what I did wrong immediately. I mean, inside of 5 seconds, I saw what I had done wrong. I had wired the plug on the alternator backwards. I have probably wired more GM AC Delco style alternators than I have fingers and toes on both hands. I absolutely know how they are supposed to be connected. But I'm a single tasker, and I probably was trying to do 2 things at once, and I can't. I just can't. If you give me 2 things at once to do, I'll probably screw both of them up. That, or I'm just getting old and screwed up. Anyway, I had it wired backwards. Now, here's the thing. The one that came out of it's wired backwards too. It's right here. It's wired backwards too. So I obviously just copied that one without ever realizing that one was wired backwards too. And this is not the one that came out of the vehicle originally. This is one that I put in when I did the ignition, the HEI swap over, because the old original one was broken. So I did it wrong. I did it wrong, and I did it wrong twice. So anyway, I saw it today. Let's talk about my meters here for a second. I threw away four multimeters, 4 cheap multimeters. 2 of them were those ones that Harbor Freight used to give away free. I used to keep those around just to toss in a glove box of a vehicle. Neither of them are working correctly now, so I threw them away. I threw my OWAN 16B that I reviewed a number of years ago. I tossed it away as well because all the plastic around in here was all broken away on a couple of the terminals, and it had popped the fuse for the 10 amp setting, and I didn't want to replace it. And I tossed another one too. I can't remember what it was, to be honest with you. I threw away 4 of them. Oh, I had a Mustech meter, and it had blown the 10 amp as well, and I blew it. I mean, it wasn't in it. It didn't do it by itself, and it's surface mounted, and I don't do surface mount. So I tossed it as well. And I picked up this Kaiweeks, this HT118A. Now, this is also known as the Habotest HT118A, and I really thought about between this one and the Astro AI 6000 something on it. Anyway, I decided on this one for a number of different reasons, and I'll tell you what they are momentarily. Unfortunately, on this one you do have to take the whole back off to get to the fuses, and on the Astro AI you do not. But the Astro AI has something else I didn't like, and this has something else I did like, so I decided on this one. And before any of you say something really dumb like, and I probably should have put this in the first 30 seconds of the video since that's all some of you seem to watch, don't say something dumb to me like, have you sent your meter out to be calibrated? Right, I'm going to send a $30 Chinese meter out and spend hundreds of dollars to have it calibrated. No, that's not going to happen. And why don't you get a decent meter? There's a decent meter. I've had this meter for over 30 years. Works fine. I've had to have it repaired multiple times, and you can already see that some of the segments on the LED are starting to get light again. I typically only use this multimeter when I'm doing extremely high voltage stuff, which I don't do, well, except for my air conditioner. I don't really do high voltage anymore, but I just didn't trust these cheap ones, and I do trust these. Another reason why I don't use this one very much is the fuses cost 10 bucks each. There are those cartridge style fuses, and when you got to replace one, they're 10 bucks. So, and I just put 2 new ones in it, so I'm going to use this one. And this one does have regular type fuses in it, and they can be replaced. You do have to take the whole back off to get to it. But one thing I like about this is it does something an old not a Radio Shack, an old Harbor Freight meter I have used to do. When you turn it on, it lights up LEDs to show you where you're supposed to have the leads plugged in. Now, I know where the damn leads are supposed to be plugged into, but again, sometimes my single tasking only makes me not do that. So now that I have this, and I'll put a link to this below. I've only had it about a week, but I've used it a couple times. Seems to work great. The HT118A gets very good reviews by the sites that test cheapo multimeters. So let's go ahead and try it. Not going to be able to see it here, but I am going to switch it over to the amp setting, and it's going to light up this common and this 10 amp. So let's plug those in. Common, 10 amps. And let's test this. See if I can set that where you can see it. Key is turned off. Let me put the camera down. Key is off. I'm going to test one side of, and I should not see above 50 milliamps. And 25 milliamps. So that's perfectly acceptable. Instead of 0.024, I was at 0.33, which is not acceptable. I mean, if you drove the car every day, you probably wouldn't notice a 0.3 of an amp parasitic draw, because it's not going to run the battery dead overnight. But if you let it sit for a week, and it will run the battery dead. So I'm very happy to have got this fixed. I'm very happy that I have a new meter that works the way I want to now. We're going to turn this back to the off setting, and I am going to unplug the amp setting and plug it back into volts and ohms. The Habo test meter is a 6,000 count true RMS meter. I paid for this with my own money. I think there's a coupon code on Amazon right now. I'll put an affiliate link to below. I think it's like 32, 33 bucks. But it has all the functions you're probably ever going to want. All the obvious ones. It does hertz. It also does temperature, and it comes with a temperature probe. So 68 degrees here today. So it's got an internal temperature as well, which really isn't that reliable. And it says Fahrenheit and Celsius on the screen at once. I like that. And it has the live voltage tester, but honestly, I would rather just use a voltage pen for that myself. But this is there if you only want to have one thing. And so far, for what I've used it for, it absolutely seems fine. Now, the other electrical kind of thing I want to do on the Jeep is every time I want to add an accessory in, and let's face it, the CJ-7 didn't come with a lot of accessories. Every time I want to add an accessory in, I need to stick my head up under the dash, and I need to find key on 12 volts. And right now I'm pulling like 3 different things out of one unused fuse on the fuse panel under there, and it's getting harder and harder for me to get to every year. So I picked this up on Amazon. I forget what it cost. I paid for it. It was 12 bucks, 15 bucks. I can't remember. Gets good reviews, feels very heavy duty. So what I'm going to do is, and you can make it hot all the time, I am going to, I think I'm going to put key on 12 volts to it. What I'm looking for is just something to run accessories, and I don't want them on when the key isn't on. So I'm probably going to run key on 12 volts to this and ground down here. It's actually the other way around. This is 12 volt positive. This is ground. I'm going to mount, and then it comes with fuses, and it comes with a cover to cover it, and you can actually see the fuses through the cover if that's your thing, and it comes with some stickers you can put on if you can, if there's anything in there that matches what you're using it for, and it comes with enough fuses to load it. Actually, it looks like it comes with more than enough. There's only 6 spots, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's twice as many fuses as you need. So where I thought I would put this is where I'd like it to be. Of course, I want it to be somewhere easy to reach. I thought I would like it right here. Right here next to that block that comes out. I have easy access to the passage that goes in under the firewall. I already have a keyed 12 volt wire coming out. I think I'll put a heavy duty one in, and I'll connect this up. I've got a ground spot right down there for it, and that way when I want to add an accessory, I don't have to go crawling under the dash. Even if it's an accessory I want to put inside, I can just hook it up here, and I can come right back in through there, and I can check the fuses right here. Honestly, I wish the entire damn fuse panel was under here, but that's not how they did it. So I think I'm going to put this one in and do that. I have my fuse panel mounted for 4 screws, and I have the ground wire in, 12 gauge ground wire. And this is probably where I should tell you, when you drill through the firewall, make sure you know what's on the other side so you don't make some stupid epic mistake like I made many, many years ago. Wasn't even my car. It wasn't even on the firewall. And God, I cringe to this day. Had to go to a body shop and be fixed because I was mounting a new seal ring on a sunroof and putting screws up from inside, and the screws they got me were too long, and I wasn't smart enough to check. And I didn't catch it on the first one. I didn't catch it till I put like 32 screws in it. And that shop had a sister body shop, so I mean, they didn't pay thousands of dollars to fix it, but they paid somebody's time, and man, I cringe to this day when I think about that. So make sure you know what's on the other side every time you drill or put in screws like that. So I'm ready now to go in and get my hot wire from the inside. That hot wire from the inside, I think it has 3 wires. So I'm going to have to run those 3 wires through here along with a new 12 gauge hot wire, and I'll pick individual spots to hook those up to. I'm not even sure what they all are, to be honest with you. Well, it seems like I made a bit of a mistake when I bought this fuse panel. Imagine that, me making a mistake. Who would have ever thought that would be possible? I just assumed that this was going to be like all the others I've ever bought. You got a hot here, a ground here. You brought your hot in from wherever you want it to come from. In this case, this wire here leads to the fuse panel. It's got a 25 amp fuse to it. And then I would bring a short stub wire around from here to each of these that I want to run across. And the fuse protects this side from this side. And then this side would go out to my, to whatever device I'm powering. But that's not the way this one works. There is no connection between this side and this side, even with a fuse in place. This side here is just a negative bus. And all it really is a convenient place for you to connect a ground wire to. If you needed a ground for something, you would connect it to any of these. It has nothing to do with the fuse protection. The only time that you have hot here is with a fuse in place. So you can see right now I have a fuse in place. I got, what? Now it's not working? What's going on? Oh, I don't have my ground hooked up. So if I hook a ground up, I'm going to hook my ground up to there. I now have hot to both sides of my fuse. Come on. Hot to both sides of my fuse and hot to here. And I have nothing there. So I don't dislike the way this works. I just wasn't expecting it to be this way. So it was kind of a surprise, and it took me a little bit of time to wrap my head around how this actually worked. If I had known it was different than what I was expecting, I probably would have disassembled it before I mounted it in place, but I didn't know, and you know what? I don't care. So here's another way I can demonstrate how this thing is set up. I've got my meter in continuity mode. When I put the cables together, So if I come to one side here, the hot side here in my hot wire, I have nothing. If I come over here, I have nothing. If I put a fuse in place, now if this worked like the old ones I was expecting, I would now have continuity between here and here, and to make this work I would need to run a stub wire to here. But notice that while my fuse is good, I still have no connectivity between there and there, even with the fuse in place. None. So, and of course if I come to ground in here, all of these are grounded. So that's just kind of odd to me. There's no reason why it won't do exactly what I want it to do. Probably do it easier because I don't have to run short stub wires across. So I'm actually kind of happy with it. I mean, I don't see myself having anything connected to here, but it's there if I want it. So I think I'm done with this for now. What I have connected is I have two connected to the top one up here with a 3 amp fuse. That's tachometer, and that's the power to the O2 gauge I put in. The O2 gauge also has a ground in its harness there, so I just brought it around here for the ground. It is not connected to these at all in any way. It is just connected in a bus to the ground that goes here, and then the one down here is the electric choke, and I have a 10 amp fuse in for that. And electric chokes don't pull 10 amps. They probably only pull 1 or 2, maybe 3, but they often spike. They'll often have a 6 or 7 amp spike when you first turn them on. So I don't want it to blow the fuse when that happens. And I think that's all I'm going to do with it for right now. Let's turn the key on. I also probably ought to check to make sure my draw is still on and check to make sure my alternator is still working. All right, packing the O2 sensor came on. So I just want to make sure that I have power. I'm going to go to ground down here. I want to make sure I have power here, and I know I do since I heard them come on. 12.4 volts there. I want to check the choke. 12.4 volts at the choke. Everything should be working. I'm going to fire it up, let it come off a high idle, and I will check the alternator. I let it warm up for about 5 minutes or so and then shut it off. Really running great with the Weber. Really happy with that. Once I get the secondary dial in, and I know there's always going to be a little bit of a flat spot with one of these when the secondary opens, but I'm fine with that. So let's check my draw here on the alternator, make sure that hasn't snuck back in on me. I'm going to switch back to amps. I'm going to put my lead, my red lead, back in the 10 amp position. My common is going to, black is going to stay in common, and I am going to disconnect this. Key is off. Cross your fingers, boys and girls. All right, let's see what we got. Doesn't matter which one I have here. Which way that is, I want to see less than 500 milliamps. Wow. 16 milliamps. That is excellent. I am very, very happy with that. So that's fixed too, and that was, of course, my screw up. Absolutely my screw up. I like this new meter so far. I'll put a link to it below. So here's the finished installation with the cover on it. Little plastic cover. They give you about 40 or 50 of these little stickers that say different things. So if you want bilge pump or things like that, they're in there. It's amazing the different things that are in there. But what isn't in there was one that said choke. But they gave 4 or 5 blank ones, and I got a little white paint stick that my wife uses for something, and I wrote CHO on it for choke. 2 years from now, or even, hell, who am I fooling? A month from now, I might not remember what this one goes to, but I think CHO will give me a hint. So this was a pretty good day. I'm very pleased. A problem that I thought was going to be a real pain in the ass to diagnose turned out to take like 10 seconds and was a very easy fix. And then a nice clean installation of a new little accessory. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Maybe I gave you some ideas for what might be wrong with your vehicle or how I add an interesting accessory in. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye for now.